Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I hope you're all doing well this morning. Match day, big game tonight. We're through. I don't want that to get clipped, but we are through. But what I do want to see tonight is, and what I'm excited to see tonight is people like Amad Diallo, Alex Telles, Axel Tuanzebe. I want to see these players playing tonight. I do not want to see Marcus Rashford or Bruno Fernandes kicking the ball for 1 minute. We've got a big game against Chelsea. Give them the day off. But look, lots to talk about in this show. Paul Pogba, Erling Haaland, and not from some mere mortal sources. This is from the mouth of Fabrizio Romano. Very interesting updates on both Pogba and Erling Haaland around this summer and potential positivity for Manchester United fans in this transfer window. We'll be talking about those. Another centre-back target that we're potentially looking at from Italy, which you may not know much about, as well as Koundé and a few other things as well. Updates on Alaba and Sergio Ramos. So lots and lots to get through on the show this morning. Let's start off with Paul Pogba though, because that is the title of the show, Pogba Transfer Hope. I think Manchester United do have hope with Paul Pogba, and I think that they do hope that he will sign a new contract. And I don't really want to get into the whys and wherefores about whether that's correct or not, because I think we've all got our opinions on that at the moment. Pogba is expected to be back properly training, hopefully next week. I don't think he'll be back for the Man City game, but after that, hopefully we will see Pogba back in March for United. I'm sure he'll be back for the French internationals and hopefully beyond with United as well, and hopefully before that. But the story about Paul Pogba in relation to the transfer hope is, and it's quite an interesting insight from Fabrizio Romano about this. He's basically said that last summer there was talk of Paul Pogba leaving Manchester United, but Manchester United were very firm that they wanted 100 million. And I presume he means euros, because that's what Romano talks in. So 100 million euros, which is about 90 million pounds. There was swap deals around there, Juventus, PSG he mentioned, and swap deals. But Manchester United were not interested in swap deals. They wanted cash. Now, I think this is an interesting insight. Remember yesterday I was talking about how Man United don't like loan deals. They don't like to do loan deals. And I suspect they don't like doing swap deals. The reason I don't think they like doing swap deals is because they don't get money to go to the Glazers. Because if you sell Pogba for 100 million euros, then you can give Ollie 60 million of that, and you can take 40 million of that and give it to the Glazers. So I think Man United like to sell players for money, because money is their god and money is what the Glazers want. So a swap deal, look, with Juventus, it depends what players were being offered, but PSG might have offered us something good. You don't know. But I think this summer we're going into is a real summer where you can do swap deals. But I don't think necessarily Man United will do it, which is a pain, because one, the money will go to the Glazers, but two, it will take us a lot longer. We'll think about it. If you want to buy Koundé and you've got to sell, I don't know. You want to buy Declan Rice and you've got to sell Jesse Lingard. If you swap Declan Rice, Jesse Lingard and a bit of money, that's all part of one deal. If you buy Declan Rice independently and you sell Jesse Lingard independently, that's two deals, which doubles your time up. So it's efficient anyway, but also I don't think United will do it. So anyway, that was 100 million euros that Man United wanted last summer. Now, what Romano is saying is that this deal about Paul Pogba leaving Manchester United all comes down to money, because Manchester United will want around 50 million euros, which he says is impossible, which really surprised me, because I think Pogba's worth 50 million pounds. He's got 1 year left on his contract, but he's still only 28, and he's still one of the best midfielders in the world. Eden Hazard had 1 year left on his contract and he went to Real Madrid for about 80 million pounds. So why would Paul Pogba 50 million euros, which is 40 million pounds? Why is that? Why is he suddenly so cheap? So I found that interesting. I don't know whether Romano was misquoted, but he basically said that Manchester United could want about 50 million euros, which is impossible. And teams like Juventus, PSG, Real Madrid are waiting around to see what Manchester United's play is going to be. What is the price Manchester United are going to put onto Paul Pogba? But I tell you what, I think 50 million euros is very, very poor for Paul Pogba. Really poor, and it did surprise me. So I'm hoping that Romano has been misquoted there, because I think £50 million is what Manchester United should be getting for Paul Pogba with 1 year left on his contract. There's no doubt that Paul Pogba's been a bit inconsistent in his time at Manchester United, but there's also no doubt to me that Paul Pogba is one of the best midfield talents in the world. So 1 year left on his contract, I would expect us to get 50 million, but of course the situation that has developed is not one of power for Manchester United. If Paul Pogba says, I'm not signing a new contract, and if teams say we're not giving you any more than 35 million, then Manchester United have got a real issue. Because if Pogba won't sign the new contract, yes, you can keep him for the final season, but he can be like, well, I'm injured, or I'm not saying he's going to do that. I don't think Paul Pogba is that, but what I'm saying is he does have the power. So it's going to be very interesting how it develops with Paul Pogba. But of course, if Man United can position themselves in a position of strength and clubs can't afford Paul Pogba and look elsewhere, then maybe the situation develops where Pogba goes, I will sign a new contract if it's agreeable. So I think United are still hopeful that they can get Pogba to stay. But, when you dive into it, it's a very interesting summer ahead. And I think the worst thing for United is that this is going to drag all summer and going to take up a lot of our time. And ultimately, we could end up, and the thing that I think worries most Man United fans is we could end up in a Jadon Sancho situation, but the other way, where we're not selling him, please don't try and do what Dortmund did and tell clubs it's 120 million or nothing, because at the end of the window, we'll just take 12 million. We will get played. We're not in a position of power. We've got to take the bull by the horn, and at the end of the day, if no club will give us 50 million euros but everyone's happy to give us 40 million euros, then we need to try and get the best deal we can and have it in our heads now before that window opens, because we might be able to go to a Juventus and say, look, if you're going to get Haaland, do you want to give us Ronaldo as part of the Pogba deal? I know that sounds speculative, but we're going to talk about Haaland in a minute. I think United need to not be an ostrich and bury their head in the sands over Pogba. I think people are waiting to see what we're going to do. And I think if we just wait there and go, hopefully this will work out, we will end up getting absolutely played big time by this. Because I think Pogba has got the strength in this situation. Nicola says that Pogba is worth 90 million. Not with 1 year left on his contract in this world. I don't think so. Pogba for 40 million will be the signing of the century, says Cameron. I think somebody's going to get a massive bargain. And I do appreciate that he's only got 1 year left on his contract. But I would say to you, if Paul Pogba had 4 years left on his contract at 28, how much is he worth? I would say he's worth what we paid. I think he's still worth about 90 million. 1 year left on his contract, you'd probably knock a third off that, down to 60 million. COVID, you'd probably knock another 10 off. I think 50 million is a fair price for Paul Pogba with 1 year left on his contract. And let's not forget, you don't just get Paul Pogba. You get Paul Pogba, the merchandise god. You get Paul Pogba, the marketable god. You get Paul Pogba is one of the most popular players in world football. So you get all that with Pogba. So I think anything less than 50 million is not good. But they could have us over a barrel here, because if he doesn't go in the summer, he's going for nothing a year later. And I don't think Pogba would be opposed to waiting another year. I don't, and I don't think he wouldn't try playing for United. I just think he might just think, you know what, how much money am I going to make in a year's time on a free? So United have got to be very, very, very careful in this situation. Yeah, very sad news about Alisson's dad, goalkeeper of Liverpool. His father has passed away in tragic circumstances. So I don't think this is anything to do with football, to be honest with you. I think this is to do with life, and I empathise with that, and send my thoughts to Alisson and his family, because it's just it doesn't matter whether it's on the evening news or it's a footballer. That's just not very nice when that happens, is it? So to me, that's got nothing to do with football. That's just human nature to feel for that person in those situations. Thank you for the super chat, Sam Matter. Appreciate that. Let's move on to Erling Haaland then, because this is probably the most exciting thing that Fabrizio Romano had to say on his podcast. He was talking about Erling Haaland, and he said that effectively Erling Haaland will leave Dortmund and he will go next summer because his release clause kicks in next summer, not this summer, and I think it's about 60-something million pounds. However, what he said is that there's a huge chance that there will be a huge race for Erling Haaland this summer, and he described it as the most exciting transfer race in about 20 years. And the reason he said that is because there will be so many clubs after Erling Haaland. You've got the 4 clubs in England: United, City, Liverpool, Chelsea. You've got Juventus. You've probably got Bayern Munich. You've got PSG. You've got Real Madrid. You've got Barcelona. There is going to be so many clubs after Erling Haaland, and if especially if Dortmund don't get Champions League football, which I think they still will, he will be leaving. But he may well leave anyway, because maybe this is the time for him to leave. I mean, he's only been there 18 months, hasn't he? So, I mean, look, Romano mentioned Manchester United in this race, and I do think Manchester United will put themselves in the race, but I don't think we will be. If this was a Formula One race, I don't think we're going to be, Mercedes or Ferrari. I think we're more likely to be someone a little bit further down, like Sauber or something like that, if they even race anymore. So I don't think. I think we will put ourselves in the race, and I think Ollie will have a word with Erling and say, look, I'd really like you at the club, but I think that Haaland could end up anywhere, really. He could end up at United, but he could end up anywhere. He could stay for another year, but the way Romano's talking, it feels to me like this will be the big deal of the summer. I think Sancho would have been the big deal of last summer if we'd actually done it, but it feels like Haaland could be the big deal of this summer. And look, if you want a top three of where I think he'll end up, I would say he will end up at either Real Madrid, Chelsea, or Juventus. I don't think he'll end up at Man City. I don't think Liverpool would get him. I don't think we'll get him. I don't think he would go to PSG because of what they've got already. I think Juventus, there is no doubt that Mino Raiola loves Italian football and has a good relationship with Juventus. And I think if Ronaldo did decide to move, then there would be a big hole for Erling Haaland there that I think Romano would happily fill if the money was right and say, look, 3 years and then he's off somewhere else. So I think it's going to be a really interesting race for Erling Haaland. I wouldn't rule Manchester United out of that race. I just don't even know if it's the right race we need to be in, because the money we're talking about here is well in excess of 70 million. Romano said it won't be stupid. It won't be 150 million. Dortmund realised that they're going to lose him for, around 70 million in a year's time anyway. So to take a little bit extra on a player that may want to go, he's probably going to be more around 90 million, isn't it? But I think there's every chance he'll go, and I think there's a lot of clubs that will be happy to pay 90 million. Manchester United might be one of those clubs, and they certainly seem to be linked with a centre forward. Look, I'd love Erling Haaland at Manchester United, and I think if they did the deal, then it shows that they can work with Raiola. But there might be something, even thinking on the spot. Give us Haaland, we'll let Pogba go. There's all sorts of things that can go on in a business boardroom, and it might be where United seem to go in cycles with Raiola. We had that amazing summer with him when Mourinho first came in, and we got Pogba, Zlatan, and Mkhitaryan, and then it all went a bit sour again. And maybe there's going to be a renaissance there. Mark, it's confirmed. Dangote is buying Arsenal, so we compete with you. He also gets Ty and Gunnosaurus as part of the deal, says Zane. And also get Koundé, Rice and Haaland, says Josh Atkinson. Very, very hard to say. I mean, look, actually, just talking about the money, I was reading the live comments before I went live, because I do have it up there, and I saw someone called Rudra saying David De Gea's on £370,000 a week, but Mark ignores that and wants to keep him. I think actually that's the big reason why I don't ignore it, Rudra. I mean, I presume we're going back on the whole Dean Henderson and De Gea thing here. This is exactly why I don't ignore it, because what you're basically saying, unless I've misinterpreted it, is that we should sell David De Gea and play Dean Henderson. But as I keep telling you, football is not a game of FIFA. It's not a game of Football Manager. It's real life. And if we bench or try to sell David De Gea, we will lose tens of millions of pounds, because we are paying him £18 million a year with 3.5 years left on his contract, and no one else is going to do that. So yes, there is a large part of business associated with David De Gea. And I also think he's a good goalkeeper. But if you think dropping that keeper or trying to sell that keeper is going to end well for us, and ultimately we want to be buying players, not having to pay players off, that is why, for me, that you've got to take that into account. And, Paul Pogba, you've got to take into account the fact that he's got 1 year left on his contract and he's got the power. There is absolutely no point putting a value on Paul Pogba if you don't do those things. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we live in a football world now where business, contracts, values are very much determined by how many years you've got left on your contract. The COVID tax, all sorts of things. And you've got to open your mind up to that or not look at it at all. It's not as simple as let's do this, let's do that. There's always the financials behind it. And we are, unfortunately, fans of a club where financials, I would say, are more important than where we finish in the league a lot of the time. That's the impression the club gives off. Imagine an all or nothing for a United team in the Sir Alex era, says Shea. Yeah, it'd be good, that would. I mean, talking about values as well, there's another story. I mean, it's coming from the Mail, so I wouldn't take it massively serious. But there's probably an element of truth to it that Manchester United do not want to be paying, £100 million for a Jadon Sancho, and they do not want to be paying a £68 million, which has been quoted for Koundé. And there is a hope that those prices will come down in the summer. I don't see Manchester United having to pay £68 million for Koundé. I think that Sevilla have got every right to try it on, but look at what Van Dijk cost. Look at what we paid for Harry Maguire, and I do think, excuse me, it's still the morning. I do think Manchester United. Forget Harry Maguire and whether he's worth 80 million. I think Maguire's a good centre-back with the right partner. I've said that many times. But I'll also always say that the Harry Maguire deal is the biggest joke up there with Alexis Sanchez for me. I mean, why we spent £80 million on him? You could almost have an hour-long show and analyse why we did that deal. I still do not know. And, actually, I put my hand up and there's probably videos of me just saying pay the money and get the player. Because that's what you do as a fan. I don't criticise myself or any other United fan for saying stop dragging it out and get the deal done. We're not involved in the negotiations, and we just wanted a centre back at that point. And to be honest, I must admit I did think Harry Maguire was better than he actually is, and that's not disrespecting Harry, even though it probably is in a way. But I don't, I'd seen him a bit for Leicester, seen him a lot for England, and I thought he was a very good centre back. But he's not quite as good as I thought he was. I still think he's good. But how United didn't know that, and also why they thought he was £80 million, I do not know. He's a £50 million centre-back, which is still a very good centre-back, by the way. Look at the centre-backs that have been bought for £50 million. That's still very good, but we paid a massive amount for him. And I do think that could be a problem for us, because when you pay a fee for a player like that, every other centre-back you try to buy, the selling club can say, well, you spent £80 million on Harry Maguire. So it's that Harry Maguire 80 million is a fee that could cause us problems for years to come, because you set that bar, don't you? You set that bar. We set the bar with Rio Ferdinand. I think it was around 30 million all those years ago. We broke the record for a centre-back, and we've done it again. And the trouble with this one is Harry Maguire is not Rio Ferdinand, but we have paid £80 million. And when we go and talk to Sevilla and say we want Jules Koundé, they will be there going, well, you paid £80 million for Harry Maguire. We think Jules is a better player. Well, yeah, he probably is, but we're not giving you £80 million. We can't do that. So I do think that hopefully we could get Koundé down, hopefully around 60, 50 million. Look, I think if Koundé goes to Liverpool or he goes to Real Madrid, they'll probably end up getting him for 45. If United buy him, we'll probably get him for 85. But I think you can get Koundé for around 50, 60 million, which I think is a fair fee. I don't think we shouldn't be paying 68 million. Not at all. I don't agree with that. Maguire was before COVID, Brian. Yeah, he was, but he's still. I don't. Sorry, maybe I should clarify that, Brian. I don't care whether we've got COVID or not. Pandemic, I don't care about that. What I do care about is that we overpaid on Harry Maguire, and I think that's nothing to do with Harry. He's got no control over it. No control over it. Like, somebody could come and offer 50 million for Phil Jones. Are you going to say he's not worth that? You're going to take the money, aren't you? It's not Phil Jones's fault. It's not Man United's fault. You're going to take the money. It's like it's like old Jack, isn't it? Wandering into the market with his cow and you give him a bag of beans for it. I mean, all right, it did have a big beanstalk in it, but he didn't know that. He thought he was just selling him a bag of beans. So, if you see a mug walking into the market saying, I'll give you £80 million for Harry Maguire, you're not going to tell him he's not really worth that. You're going to take the money and reinvest it in people like Fofana and everybody else that Leicester do, don't you? So I don't put any blame on Leicester or Harry Maguire or his agent or anybody else. It falls on the toes of Manchester United's board. And how desperate must we have been to be handing over £80 million in that deal? But regardless of COVID, he's not worth it anyway. Mark, did you see that rubbish on the MUFC official Instagram saying Maguire is number one in the world? Getting ridiculous now, says Harrison Dunn. Well, Manchester United social media, I mean, why should who runs their social media? Who's doing that? Like, they're just faceless people. I mean, we don't know who they are. So just because they've got the platform of Manchester United, and I don't know whether it is Manchester United, Mark, but just because they've got the platform of Manchester United doesn't mean they're a better super fan. Doesn't mean anything. So look at the crap they've tweeted over the years anyway. So I've got no interest in that. And if they've got to back their players, I get that. They've got a brand to sell, and it's a Manchester United brand. But Harry Maguire for me is not even in the top 5 centre backs in the Premier League. So can he be? Yes, he can. Is he? No. Is it his fault that we paid £80 million? No. Do I really care about it anymore? It's done. What I do care about is if we want to buy Koundé, we're going to have to negotiate a lot better, and that's my point. We shouldn't have to pay £70 million for Koundé. We should be able to get that down to 60, 50 million easy, and we're going to have to negotiate better. Why not hype your own players as a club, says Arna. Exactly. I've got no problem with Manchester United hyping their own clubs, hyping their own players, because that's their job. Mark, do we do well to negotiate with the price of Bruno Fernandes, says Red Carter. I always said that Bruno Fernandes was worth 60 million quid, and I think that I think that he is. I think that he was, and I think that's what we end up paying in add-ons. So I don't think the Bruno Fernandes deal was that bad. I think we paid 48 million up front with about 12 million in add-ons. I think you needed to know what Bruno Fernandes' potential was to be at a big club to know that. I think United were probably a bit scared about that deal, but I think it was a very, very good deal. I mean, just talking about centre-backs, I did see something on Twitter today. I think it was at MUFC MPB talking about Gleison Bremer, who is a 23-year-old centre-back at Torino. I don't know loads about this lad. I've got to be honest. I mention it just because you just never know, and I wouldn't want in the summer for us to go and sign this lad and everyone go, well, you never mentioned him. So I bring it in. Apparently we've scouted him. He's playing in Serie A, and he's Brazilian. He's not played for Brazil yet, I don't think. He's about 6'2". Reasonable pace, and I think pace is always the thing that we're looking at with this new centre back if they're going to play next to Maguire. Reasonable pace. I mean, look, I don't know. I think if we bought him, he's the sort of player that he would be on the bench next season and we'd still be playing Lindelof and Maguire. I think that's what we've got to be very, very careful of. Like Kabak has gone to Liverpool and he's playing for Liverpool, but that's because they've got nobody else. I think if United had bought Kabak, he'd be on the bench and we'd still play Lindelof and Maguire. We need a top-class centre-back that you instantly know is going to bench Lindelof or Maguire, probably Lindelof. So I wouldn't be going for this Bremer guy. I wouldn't be going for Pau Torres or anyone like that. I think that we need to buy a top-class centre-back, whether it's Varane, Koundé or anybody else. It's got to be 50 to 60 million quid that you spend on a player, and absolutely they demand to be a first-team player from day one. We can't buy somebody who's potential, needs time to bed in, and we still see Maguire and Lindelof next season. That would make me cry. If we buy a centre-back, but it's the sort of centre-back that's not actually going to start, then what is the progression? So we've got to go and get the right sort. So, keep an eye on it. Midget Gamer says, what about Ramos? Well, I can give you an update on Sergio Ramos, and I can give you an update on Alaba, because they were both mentioned by the by Fabrizio Romano on his podcast. In relation to Alaba, he said that there's a verbal agreement with David Alaba and Real Madrid, and that is where he wants to go. He did mention interest from, I think it was PSG, Liverpool and Chelsea. Man United never in for Alaba, so that's just a bit of background on that. I think that's a mistake, but it's a race we probably couldn't win anyway, so we didn't bother. On Sergio Ramos, he basically said that Manchester United have made no contact with Sergio Ramos. There's nothing in that story, and at the moment it's about Perez at Real Madrid and Ramos sorting out a deal. So that would put Real Madrid with Ramos staying on 14 million a year, Alaba joining on about 12 million a year, and obviously they've still got the contract of Varane to sort out. So Real Madrid don't have, they haven't got loads of money. They're having to be very careful in COVID. And remember, Mbappe and Haaland are potentially available. And I think Real Madrid, I looked at that team last night of Real Madrid, and I know they've got injuries, but since Ronaldo's gone, they've missed that X factor. I thought Hazard was a mistake. I did think he was a mistake at the time, and so I just didn't feel like he was going to have that huge of an impact. I didn't expect him to have such a bad impact, but he's not. I didn't think he'd have a huge impact. So I think that Real Madrid do need an Mbappe or an Erling Haaland, and can they afford, therefore, to have Alaba, Ramos and Varane? So maybe something might start to develop with Varane. It's an outside chance. I mean, look, Ahmed's just said, what about Pogba for Varane? There is an outside chance of something happening there, but knowing Real Madrid, they'll probably end up with Alaba, Ramos and Varane. But can you play them all? I think you can, because Alaba's quite versatile, but surely one of them's got to go. And if Alaba's going there, Ramos is staying there, then is Varane going to stay there? Be interesting to see. Buy Rafinha and Calvert-Lewin, says Akshat. Very expensive to do that, mate. So you've got to look at the value there. Susan says, oh no, she's having a chat with somebody. That's fine. And George is having a chat back. United need a centre-back, but we'll end up buying another midfielder, says Jack. Jack Grealish, says Caleb Jackson. I mean, Jack Grealish, I'm sure, is a player that will get linked to Manchester United over the coming weeks and months. I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't see how it works with Grealish, to be honest with you. We need... Pogba has played as a deep line midfielder, and that's what we need. And there is no way that Jack Grealish really is best suited there. I would like Grealish at United. I think he's a very creative player, and I think whether if you put him on the left or you swap him with Bruno, a bit of interchangeability, I wouldn't mind Grealish at the club, but Villa would want top dollar for him. Not a priority, but I'd get rid of both De Gea and Hendo. De Gea plus 20 million for Hendo, from Hendo for Oblak, who is already on De Gea's wages, says Duncan. And H, says Renate. Okay. Van der Beek is a deep line playmaker, says Jeremy, only because you say so. I don't think that is actually Donny's position. I think he can play there, but I don't think that anybody would really describe Donny van der Beek as a deep lying playmaker. He can play there, but he hasn't played there for the vast majority of his career. I see Van der Beek as a box-to-box player. That's what I've always seen him as. I don't see him as a number 10 at United because we've got a number 10. So I think that's what he needs to happen. Why has Trippier talks gone quiet, says Devonshire? Because the transfer window is not open. I still think Trippier could happen. I don't think Max Aarons is viable for Manchester United because I don't think we've got a load of money to spend this summer, and I think Norwich will quite rightly want about 30 million, especially because they look like they're going to get promoted again, and I don't think United can justify spending over 20 million on a backup right back. So Ethan Laird's doing very well at MK Dons at the moment as well. Lindelof might want to go to Sevilla if we sign Koundé, says Robert McCormack. He always goes to Atletico Madrid on my FIFA career mode, if that's any suggestion that he might fancy a bit of Spain. Eric Dyer would be a great signing, says Harrison. You know, everything about that sentence could have worked if you'd left the word Eric Dyer out and put a decent player in place. Varane coming to Man United would convince Pogba to stay, says Cameron. I don't think it would. I think Pogba... I've always said about Pogba, I actually do understand why he wants to leave Manchester United. I know as United fans we don't want to understand it because we want players that are going to stay at this football club forever. But I think Paul Pogba, look, he has been inconsistent in a Manchester United shirt, except that I do. But also, he's won a World Cup. He believes, because you have to believe that you're one of the best players in the world. And if he looks at it, he could probably predict that we're not going to win the title or the Champions League before he's 31, which is 3 years' time. So he's been at United for coming up for 4 years now. And why would he do 5 and 6 and 7 when you only get one career and he could go to Juventus or Real Madrid and win a league title again at Juventus, but hopefully win a Champions League? He will want to win the big prizes in his prime. And he might stay at United for a big contract. He might stay at Man United because he believes that they can become title winners. But realistically, you can't blame him if he doesn't, when there's a large proportion of our fan base that don't think we're anywhere near winning a title with this board anyway. It's not about Ollie. It's not about the squad. It's about the ambition of the football club. How can we as fans sit here regularly criticising the ambition of our football club and then criticise a footballer who's only got one career, has been here for a few years, and who says, look, I like the football club, I don't like the ambition of the football club, I'm going to a football club that has got ambition. How is that criticisable, really? I don't get that. I don't get that. I've got no problem with Paul Pogba wanting to leave Manchester United, if that's the reason. My only issue with Pogba is that his agent has, doing it mid-season and doing big interviews and derailing the club, disrespects the club. That was always my issue. His reasons for going, I don't really have an issue if it's about ambition. King James says, hi Mark, why would a top striker come next season to be isolated and get no service? Surely a top-notch CDM and a centre-back will balance the team and get them moving forward quicker. Spot on, King James. And I do think that Erling Haaland will look at Manchester United in that sense and go, I don't know whether this is a good deal for me, because the creativity is just not there. BVN Dit Music says, I would love a player like Nainggolan. What do you think, Mark? He's a good passer, strong on the ball, and could put a shift in. Is he not about 42 now? He's past it, mate. I don't even know where he's playing now. Raji Nainggolan. I don't know. A couple of years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, I was talking about him, but he'd be past it now. I don't even know where he is. Never hear of him. He plays as a cam, says Frank Carville. I just don't hear about him anymore. He's 36, says Dodd Pro, and he's at Cagliari. So there you go. From the 4 last shirts I had names on: Di Maria, Rooney, Pogba and Sanchez. Pogba was the best one. I wish him all the best, but I never ever will print a name again on the shirt, says DK. Yeah, with that record, you're almost like Alex. Yeah, Alex, who's on the fan forum, he has had, over the years, he's had Di Maria, he's had Falcao, he's had Memphis. I think he probably did have Alexis Sanchez as well. Any flop, he will jinx them. Any signing, he will jinx them, sorry. Please take Eric Dyer. Pay money to take him, Saracen. And do you rate Ndembele, says Razzie. I do rate Ndembele. He's a player I think Manchester United could have gone in for when he left Lyon. But we didn't. And I do think he's a good player. And I do think he would have suited Manchester United. But it's not something that's going to happen now. And thoughts on Ruben Neves, says Red Devils. Well, I do like Ruben Neves, and I do think he's better than Wolves, with all due respect to Wolves. But there just never seems to be any links with Manchester United and Wolves players, which is weird because Wolves have been a good team for a few years now, but we don't seem to do that. And fair play for Liverpool, they went and got Jota, but there are good players at Wolves that I think have proven themselves to be Premier League quality players that could definitely play at Manchester United, but we just don't ever seem to get linked to them, and I don't know why. Neto, Basuma and Badashil, says Iron. Out of the box thinking there, but good. What are your thoughts on Ziyech, says Mobility Scooter Drifter. I like Ziyech. If Man United had bought Ziyech, I'd have been very excited. It could well be what Dirk Kuyt was talking about an adaptation issue in relation to the Premier League from the Dutch League, because Ziyech, Ajax, Donny van der Beek, Ajax, maybe there is something a little bit deeper about players adjusting, but Ziyech, really, I didn't think he'd have the impact of Bruno, but I did think he'd have a big impact. So maybe he will be a second season star, because I do think he's a quality player, Ziyech, and it's weird how he's not adapted as quick as I thought he would. But then Havertz, Werner, Donny van der Beek, there's a few players that I thought were really good signings that haven't adapted this season as quickly as I thought. If we get Haaland, where does that leave Greenwood becoming number 9 for us, says LW21? Well, maybe Greenwood won't be a striker. Maybe he will be a number 10. Maybe he will be a winger. I don't know. But I'd like to see Greenwood as a number 9. I think that's what we all aspire to see at the end of the day. But it is match day today, and I'm very excited about this one. We will be live at, is it 8 o'clock? It's 8 o'clock, isn't it? It's not that silly 5 to 6 kickoff. So it's 8 o'clock tonight. So we'll be live at about 6:30, because the team news with the Europa League can come in at any time between an hour and a half before. So we will be live at 6:30 tonight for that. If obviously anything breaks, we'll go live again. I've got FIFA career mode this afternoon. But please smash a like on the video and subscribe. We are on the road to 1 million. So subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Help us get there. Share the video. Smash a like. And yes, have a good day. Stay safe. And I'll speak to you all soon. Very interesting what's happening. Will we get Pogba staying at the club? Will he go on the cheap? Can we get Haaland? Would Haaland want to come? It's going to be one of those transfer windows, isn't it? It's almost like there's a lot of pent-up tension and undone business from last summer that's going to get done this summer. And there's going to be a lot of people clawing around for a lot of players. And if they don't get Haaland, maybe they go for Sancho, maybe they go for Mbappe. What will United end up with? But at least we can't get Josh King because he's at Everton. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all in a bit.